I was sitting in my Ford pickup outside my own house at 10 o'clock at night. I had just finished a call with my divorce attorney and my hands were still shaking. Through the living room window, I could see the warm glow of lights where my wife was probably watching television completely unaware. After 12 years of marriage, everything was about to end. Not because I wanted it to, but because I had learned the truth she had been hiding for 6 months. She had been having an affair with her boss, David Harper. Tomorrow morning I would execute the plan I had been preparing for 2 weeks. But what I did not know was that she had already heard everything. Before we dive into what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop a comment below and let me know your city or country. If you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, hit that like button. And please subscribe, because what comes next will show you exactly how truth has a way of revealing itself at the worst possible moment. Trust me, you will want to see how this unfolds. Let me take you back to how this all started. I met Jessica at a coffee shop in Portland 13 years ago. I was 23, fresh out of college, working my first real job as a software engineer. She was 22, bright and ambitious, working in marketing for a local firm. We connected instantly over a shared love of hiking and terrible puns. She had this laugh that could light up a room, and I fell hard. We dated for 2 years before I proposed at Crater Lake during a camping trip. The wedding was small but perfect, just our families and close friends at a vineyard outside the city. A year later, we welcomed our son Tyler into the world. Watching Jessica hold our baby boy for the first time, I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. We bought a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, planted a garden, adopted a golden retriever named Biscuit. We had the whole package. 2 cars in the driveway, a retirement plan, annual vacations to the coast where Tyler would build sandcastles while Jessica and I walked hand in hand along the shore. For over a decade, we built a life together. We had our struggles, like any couple. Money was tight those first few years. We argued about whose turn it was to do dishes, about whether to send Tyler to public or private school, about my long hours during product launches. But we always worked through it. At least I thought we did. Jessica was my best friend, my partner, the person I trusted more than anyone in this world. I never imagined she could betray me the way she did. About 6 months ago, things started changing. Jessica began working late more frequently. Her company had brought in a new chief operating officer, David Harper. He was 42, married with 2 teenage daughters, and by all accounts a successful businessman. Jessica talked about him constantly at first. How impressive he was, how he was transforming the company culture, how much she was learning from him. I was happy for her. Proud even. My wife was thriving in her career. But then the late nights became routine. 3, sometimes 4 evenings a week, she would text me saying she had to stay for meetings or finish urgent projects. She started paying more attention to her appearance. New dresses appeared in her closet. She switched from the floral perfume she had worn for years to something more sophisticated and expensive. She joined a gym and went religiously before work. Her hair was always styled, her makeup carefully applied, even on weekends. At home, she became distant. We used to talk for hours about everything and nothing. Suddenly, conversations felt forced and shallow. She stopped making eye contact during dinner. When I tried to hold her hand while watching movies, she would pull away after a minute, saying her hand was getting sweaty or she needed to check something on her phone. Speaking of her phone, that became another red flag. She had always been casual about it, leaving it on the kitchen counter or the coffee table. Now it was glued to her side. She changed the password, something she had never done before. She started taking it into the bathroom with her. I tried talking to myself rationally. She was under pressure at work with the new management. The company was going through restructuring. She was probably stressed and dealing with it by focusing on self-care. The gym membership made sense. The new clothes were about feeling confident at work. I made excuses because I did not want to believe what my gut was telling me. I did not want to be that suspicious husband who jumped to conclusions. But the feeling would not go away. It gnawed at me during my own workdays, sitting at my desk writing code while wondering what my wife was really doing. It kept me awake at night, lying beside her while she slept peacefully, or at least pretended to. Then came the Friday evening that changed everything. Jessica had texted that afternoon saying she would be working late again, probably until 9 or 10. Tyler was spending the night at his best friend's house, so I decided to surprise Jessica by detailing her Honda CR-V. She had been complaining about how messy it had gotten, and I thought it would be a nice gesture. I was vacuuming under the passenger seat when my hand hit something wedged between the seat and the center console. I pulled it out. It was a receipt from the Hilton downtown, printed on that thin thermal paper that hotels use. The date was from 2 weeks earlier. I stared at it, confused at first. Then my stomach dropped. It was for a suite. Check in at noon on a Thursday. Check out at 8 in the evening. The same Thursday, Jessica had told me she was driving to Seattle for an all-day client meeting. My hands started shaking as I held that small piece of paper. I sat down in the driver's seat of her car, just staring at it, reading it over and over like the words might change. Jessica had lied to me. She had checked into a hotel room in the middle of the day in our own city and lied about where she was. I went inside and opened our laptop, logging into our shared credit card account. I started going through the statements from the past 6 months with a sickening feeling of dread. There they were. Charges at expensive restaurants I had never been to, bars in the downtown area, a florist, another hotel, all on days when Jessica had claimed to be working late or traveling for business. The evidence was right there in black and white, and I had been too trusting to look. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. The woman I had loved for 13 years, the mother of my child, had been systematically lying to me for months. I wanted to confront her immediately, to demand answers. But something stopped me. A voice in my head, maybe pride or maybe just survival instinct, told me to be smart about this. I needed more than credit card statements and a hotel receipt. I needed concrete proof. The next Monday, I contacted a private investigator named Frank Miller. He was in his 60s, a former police detective who had been doing this kind of work for 40 years. His office was a small room above a hardware store filled with filing cabinets and the smell of old coffee. I showed him pictures of Jessica and gave him the information I had about David Harper. Frank did not judge or ask unnecessary questions. He just nodded and said he would get me answers within a week. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was at work. It was Frank. He had what I needed. We met that evening at a quiet diner on the edge of town. Frank slid a manila envelope across the table. My hands were trembling as I opened it. The photographs inside destroyed any remaining hope I had been clinging to. Jessica and David walking into the Hilton, his hand on the small of her back. The two of them kissing beside his silver Lexus in a parking garage. Sitting at an intimate table at an Italian restaurant, David reaching across to hold her hand. Another photo of them on a park bench, her head on his shoulder. There were time stamps and location data on each image. Frank had been thorough. He told me they had been meeting at least twice a week for the past 5 months, probably longer. Always at hotels or restaurants far enough from our neighborhood that they felt safe. David would leave work early. Jessica would make up excuses. They had a system worked out. Frank even had video footage of them entering a hotel room together at 2 in the afternoon and not emerging until 6. I sat in that diner booth looking at these images of my wife with another man and felt like my entire world was collapsing. But I kept my composure. I thanked Frank, paid him for his work, and requested a detailed written report with all the evidence. He promised to have it ready within 2 days. Then I drove home, knowing I would have to sit across the dinner table from Jessica and pretend everything was normal. That night, after seeing those photographs, I barely slept. I lay in bed, careful not to touch Jessica, staring at the ceiling and thinking. The next morning, I started planning. I was not going to just confront her and let her talk her way out of it or manipulate the situation. I was going to do this right. First, I wanted to know more about David Harper. I spent hours researching him online. His LinkedIn profile showed an impressive career trajectory. His Facebook page was public, and it painted the picture of a devoted family man. Photos of him with his wife Caroline at their daughter's soccer games, posts about their 20th wedding anniversary trip to Hawaii, pictures from last Christmas with Caroline and their 2 daughters, Emma and Sophia, who were 17 and 15. Caroline Harper taught third grade at an elementary school across town. Her own social media showed a woman who seemed genuinely kind and dedicated to her students. She posted pictures of classroom projects, school events, and family dinners. She had no idea her husband was having an affair with a woman from his office. Looking at her smiling face in those photos, I felt sick. She deserved to know the truth, just like I deserved to know. I found Caroline's email address through the school's website, where she was listed as a teacher contact. I started composing a message to her, but saved it as a draft. I would send it when the time was right. David Harper was not going to get away with destroying two families without facing consequences. Next, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Patricia Evans came highly recommended by a colleague who had gone through his own divorce years earlier. Her office was professional and calm, with family law books lining the walls. Patricia was in her mid-50s with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. I liked her immediately. I laid everything out for her. The hotel receipts, the credit card statements, Frank's photographs, and detailed report. Patricia looked through all of it carefully, making notes. When she finished, she looked up at me and said this was one of the more clear-cut cases she had seen. With this level of evidence, I would have significant advantages in the divorce proceedings, especially regarding asset division. I told Patricia my main priority was custody of Tyler. I wanted primary custody, with Jessica having visitation rights. Patricia explained that given the circumstances and the fact that Jessica's affair could be proven to have taken time and attention away from parenting responsibilities, I had a strong case. She would prepare all the necessary documents. Over the next 10 days, I prepared for what was coming. I organized all our financial documents. I made copies of everything important: the deed to our house, car titles, insurance policies, our mortgage statements. I opened a separate bank account and transferred half of our savings into it, following Patricia's advice. I was not trying to hide money, but I needed to protect myself financially. I documented everything so there would be a clear paper trail. I found a furnished Airbnb apartment and rented it for 2 weeks. I packed a suitcase with clothes and essentials, hiding it in the trunk of my car. I called 3 of my closest friends and told them what was happening, asking if they could be available for support. They all immediately offered to help however I needed. Then I finalized the email to Caroline Harper. I read it and rewrote it probably 20 times. The tone was respectful and apologetic. I introduced myself, explained that I hated being the person to deliver this information, but I felt she deserved to know the truth. I attached several of the less explicit photographs, enough to prove the affair without being cruel. I included details about the timeline, the hotels, the pattern of meetings. I wrote that I understood the pain she would feel reading this because I was living through that same pain. I saved the email in my drafts folder, ready to send it at the right moment. Patricia scheduled the divorce papers to be served to Jessica at her office at 9 in the morning. I planned to send the email to Caroline at exactly the same time. That way there would be no opportunity for David and Jessica to coordinate a story or try to contain the damage. The truth would hit both families simultaneously. The night before everything was set to happen, I sat in my truck outside our house at 10 in the evening. I had just gotten off the phone with Patricia, going over the final details one more time. The papers would be delivered in less than 12 hours. The email would send automatically. Everything was ready. I sat there in the darkness, looking at the lights in our house, and felt a strange mixture of emotions. Grief for the marriage I thought I had. Relief that I would not have to pretend anymore. Anxiety about how Tyler would handle this. Determination to see it through. After about 15 minutes, I took a deep breath and got out of the truck. It was time to go inside, act normal for one more night, and prepare for tomorrow. I had no idea that Jessica already knew everything. I walked up to the front door and opened it. The house was too quiet. Usually I could hear the television or music, some sign of life. But tonight there was only silence. I stepped into the living room and froze. Jessica was sitting on the couch, but not in a relaxed way. She was perched on the edge, her face pale, her hands shaking. In her right hand she was holding something. As my eyes adjusted to the light, I realized what it was. My Bluetooth earpiece. The one I used for phone calls. The one I had left on the kitchen counter this morning. My blood ran cold as I understood what had happened. The earpiece was still connected to my phone. Jessica must have accidentally activated it while looking for something, maybe moving it out of the way while cleaning.